I have always thought that a garden could be a place of quiet reflection, a sanctuary where the world's noise melts away into the rustle of leaves and the perfume of jasmine. That was the garden that belonged to my family for 3 generations. The rose bushes, the stone pathways, the silver fountain that hissed like a small dragon, everything in that place was a memory stitched into my skin. I had never imagined that this sanctuary would become the very stage upon which my family's greatest betrayals would play out. I was 16 when I first discovered the letter. It was hidden in the hollow of the old oak tree, a place that had been a secret hideout for my father's childhood friends. The paper was brittle, the ink fading into a pale brown. My name, written in a cramped, hurried hand, made my heart thud. "You need to know everything. It will save you," it read. I stared at the words until the corners of my mouth twisted into a crooked smile that did not belong to me. The letter was from a man named Jonas Rask, a name that had never been spoken aloud in my family. It was addressed to my mother, Eleanor. The writer was clear and clinical in his confession. He had loved Eleanor for years, but her husband, my father, had abandoned him in the wake of a scandal that had shaken the town. He had seen her, a beautiful woman, leave her past behind and build a new life with a man who was nothing but a good steward of the family's fortunes. Jonas pleaded for forgiveness and a chance to start over. He promised to stay away and keep this secret until Eleanor decided what to do. It seemed like a small thing, a simple letter of unrequited love. But for me, the letter was a seed. I saw in it a mirror of the lies that would soon surface from the very walls of the house we called home. The first betrayal. It was 2 years after that letter had found me that I first noticed the fissures in my parents' relationship. The morning my mother had come home late from work, she was pale as a winter leaf, her eyes hollow. She told me that my father had been late again, that he would be home when the storm passed. In truth, he had left early that day, taking a car full of documents to the town hall, leaving his wife with a letter of apology that would haunt her for years to come. I watched him from the window, his silhouette swallowed by the dark of the street, and my heart broke as the realization sank in. I tried to keep quiet. I believed in the sanctity of family. I thought of the garden, where love had once blossomed. I didn't know that this garden would soon be overrun by thorns. The revelation. I waited until the storm had passed and my mother had gone to bed. I slipped into her office, where the light of the lamp flickered like a dying star. The paper on her desk was a bundle of contracts and deeds, our family's deeds, my father's legal documents. I noticed a page that was not in the others. My name, written in my own handwriting, but not my mother's. It was a will that made me an heir to a portion of the family's fortune. The next day, my mother found the note on her pillow. She called me into the kitchen, her eyes flashing. "What do you mean?" she demanded. I took a breath, the same breath I used when I first read the letter from Jonas. I said, "I found a will. It says that I will receive part of the estate." "Why?" Her answer was a sentence that will haunt me. "We had to protect you, dear. We had to protect you from the truth." It was as if the entire house had turned its eyes to me. The family's intrigue the next few months were a whirlwind of secrecy. My father started speaking in riddles. He stopped going out. He came home early, his hands stained with a smell of dust. My mother would whisper to me about a hidden truth that would make him feel like a child in a cage, my child. I began to notice the patterns. My father would leave early with a briefcase. My mother would always keep her head down when I approached. My own heart was a stormy sea. One evening, while my father was out of town for an urgent matter, I found his office. He had a secret drawer with a letter addressed to me. If ever you question our actions, read this. The letter was from a man named Rasmus. It was a confession that my father was in a relationship with Rasmus, who had been involved in a crime, smuggling of goods for a cartel. The letter had detailed how the father had covered up the crime for the sake of the family's name. In that moment, I realized that the lies that had been hidden were not just about money or affection, but about an illegal operation. I was shaken. I did not know what to do. I felt like a puppet pulled by unseen hands. I knew that my mother had a part in it too. She was complicit. She had been a silent accomplice in the smuggling operation. She had used the family's fortune to buy property. The idea of a betrayal so large was like a stone thrown into a small pond, the ripples spreading in a pattern I could not predict. The second betrayal, a new ally. A month later, a woman named Mira arrived at our doorstep. She was a former friend of my mother's from when she studied abroad. Her eyes were bright, her smile genuine. She came to help my mother with the new business, and she seemed to understand all the details of the smuggling operation. My mother, in particular, was drawn to her. We all thought Mira was a savant who had taken my family's fortunes into her hands. One night, as we all sat around the table, my mother told me that Mira had been the mastermind behind the smuggling operation. She had run the operation for years, and my father was only a cog in her machinery. She had also been the one who made the decision to smuggle money into the family's accounts. She had even taken a portion of the money to buy a plot of land that my mother and I later found a secret underground lab on. When I discovered this, I was a wreck. The entire world I had known collapsed. The family I loved was a group of traitors, and the lies that had been woven into the fabric of the family were now exposed like a rotten fruit. My mother, who had taught me everything I had known about kindness, had been a thief and a liar. My father was a liar. The person I had called my father was not a father. The woman I had called mother was not a mother. The garden that I had grown up in was no longer a sanctuary. 7. The decision. I was at a crossroads. I could have left. I could have walked away from my family's ruin. I could have gone to the police. But I also had a need to be the master of my own destiny. I decided to take revenge. But not in a reckless or violent way. I wanted to make the people who had betrayed me and the family they had built lose everything. I started to gather evidence. I found letters from Jonas, documents from Rasmus, photographs of the hidden underground lab. I used my father's computer to access the records. I found a way to hack into the bank accounts, but I was careful. I didn't want to get caught. I wanted to protect the family that still existed, my sister, Anna, and our younger brother, Lucas. I didn't want to destroy the whole house, only the people who had turned my world upside down. 7. The preparation. For months, I prepared. I became a shadow, moving in the dark. I made lists. I made my father think that he had no one to trust. I called my mother once. The call was long and emotional. I told her that we needed to talk about the future. We met at the kitchen, the air thick with secrets. During the meeting, I whispered to her that the money that was hidden under the floor was not mine. She looked stunned. She didn't want to hear it. I told her that I had found a list of people who had contributed to the smuggling operation. I said that I had a way to expose them, but the only way to get the money back was to go to the police. She was furious, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. I took a small step. I left a letter on the kitchen table. I will go to the police. If you can do it, you can make a better life. The money will be returned, but it will cost you X. The execution the next day, I went to the police station. The detective was a man named Frank. He was skeptical of me. But my evidence was undeniable. I had a list of documents, photos of the underground lab, and a list of names. The evidence had already been found by the police because the authorities had been looking for a hidden criminal organization. The police took the money from the account, but my family's name was not cleared. The family had been in the news. My father had to face the consequences of the smuggling operation. My mother was now in trouble, and Mira was now a prime suspect. At the same time, I had a plan for revenge. I did not want to be the one to make my father pay. I wanted to make the mother pay. I did so. In the underground lab, the mother had kept a small stash of money that she had never given to anyone. I found a letter from her to Jonas, telling her that she had the plan for the family. I discovered the list of her enemies in the house. I took it, and in the end, I took the money that she had hidden and gave it to the family. X. The aftermath: the next morning, the whole family was in a room with the police. The detectives were taking my mother's statements. The police were going to charge her. My father was also facing charges. Mira was arrested for smuggling. The house was not safe anymore. But the family's name was saved from the worst of the allegations. I had taken a risk. I had taken the money and turned it back to the family. In that sense, I had done the revenge that I promised myself. I left my mother's house after that. My father and I had a conversation with the detective. He asked me, "Are you going to make me pay? Or are you just trying to get the family name back?" I responded, "No, I am not going to make you pay. I am going to help the family. The family is the only thing that matters." I was satisfied. The story of revenge had come full circle. I had started the story with a letter from a stranger. I had turned my family into a drama about lies and betrayal. And I had found the means to make the people responsible for the deception pay. The end. I left the house at the end of the day. I walked to the garden. The garden was empty, the roses wilted, the fountain had no water. I sat in the grass and thought about how the story had come to a close. I had taken revenge. I had also come to terms with my own humanity. I was not a monster. I had simply taken the place that was rightfully mine. In a way, my revenge had become a reminder that no matter how much the world may break you, you can choose to rewrite your story. No matter how the family may betray you, you can choose to stand by your own moral code. In the end, revenge was not an end but a new beginning. And that was what mattered.